Start recording. Okay, hello. Today we are playing some 4-color Omnath. So, for change, doing some more mainstream decks, and this is probably one of the best decks in the format right now, but it's mostly played in a slightly different version. I play this version for a long time and always had good results with this version. The only change after Neo was adding 2 March of Otherworldly Light, and I would like to add Otawara and Bosiju instead of Reflecting Pool, and one Misty Rainforest probably, but still didn't do the change. But for this league I played recently and did 5-0, but I think I'll definitely do that change. I wanted to play one more league like this before changing mana base to see again just exactly what I would like to remove. But I think that's it. Reflecting Pool and probably one Misty to do those changes. So we are playing some standard stuff for this deck, like 4 Omnaths, 4 Solitudes, 2 Furies, 2 Marches, 4 Endings, some Expressive Iterations, Friends Teferis, Abundant Growths, 2 Bolts and 1 Heat. I still prefer Bolt for this deck before Heat, but I put 1 Heat to have slightly more options in a deck and slightly different cards. But we have newer version dropped the Ephemerate from the deck, but and they are more controlish version than this, but this version goes primarily on blinking your stuff and wins mostly with finding or drawing creatures you need with Eladamri's Coatl, and doing the Ephemerate is pretty important for this version. So I'm playing 4 Ice-Fang Coatls, which I think are very good right now, especially in this deck. And also playing 2 Wall of Omens to give me early protection from creatures. And you could definitely replace Wall of Omens with Spreading Seas, which is also a great card right now, but I'm currently playing it on sideboard. So a Trio Eladamri's Coatl's main, I'm like very happy with playing this card in main, and it's always been the best card in a deck. For me, in this version that relies more on blinking your creatures and just finding the pieces you need to win the game. I decided to play 1 Eldritch Evolution in a deck instead of 4 Eladamri's Coatl, because I play 6 of these 2 drops in a deck, and Eldritch Evolution can be very good with those when you need to find Graveyard Hate, turn 3 removal, or just Omnath. So because we are playing Eladamri's Coatl, I put some one-offs in a deck, like Skyclave Apparition, 2 Eternal Witnesses, 1 Endurance, and 1 Soulherder. All of these drops Witness is I play 2 Witness, but they are all pretty important, and I fetch them a lot, really a lot with Eladamri Scrolls, and they are definitely game winning in a lot of situations. So I'm especially pleased with the Skyclave Apparition and obviously Endurance against certain matchups. Soulherder has also been fine every time I draw it. It's never been useless, so it's also pretty good stuff. A pretty good card when your entire deck is enter the battlefield abilities. So you can also find it if you already used. If your Fury is on the battlefield and second one is in exile or graveyard, you can then use Soulherder to again do the Fury ability. And just repeat the abilities of creatures that are already on the battlefield if you need them. So obviously you can play without them, but I really like this version that relies more on blinking your creatures, and the reason why I like it is because I always had fun playing it, and I always had good results with this deck. So my last 2 leagues that I played with the deck were both 5-0. So we will just go through the sideboard quickly. I'm playing 2 Spreading Seas. I would like to play a third one, and I probably will. I'm playing 2 Mystical Disputes, which are very good against mirror matchups and all control and blue matchups. Veil of Summer. I don't think I use it much ever, and I rarely put it in. Just against some heavy control matchups and sometimes Jund or Grixis. Collector Ouphe, which is fetchable with our Eladamri Scrolls and is very important to win against the hardened scales, artifact decks, maybe Hammer, but Hammer isn't that much played right now after ban. I have 2 more Endurance on sideboard, 2 Force of Vigors, 1 Knight of Autumn as additional artifact enchantment removal, 3 Dovin's Veto, which are pretty important because I don't play counterspells in main, and you have to have a counterspell against these combo decks and similar, but I just don't encounter them much lately, and when I do, I usually win without even succeed to win without even casting the veto. So, but sometimes veto is really necessary, and it's unconditional counterspell for all the cascade spells. They can't counter it, and so it's pretty important to have some hate against those decks. You could also play 4 copies if you think you will meet a lot of these decks in your local tournament or something like that. Okay, so let's check the replays of my previous league with the deck. Okay, let's. This was game 1 from that league. I was playing first, and my opponent played Glimpse deck, And luckily I was playing first because I had Teferi in hand. And they just didn't do anything after I put Teferi on the battlefield. And so it was pretty game-winning play. After this, they really didn't do anything, just put some permanents into play, which I then removed, but they didn't have a solution for Teferi, didn't find it the whole game, so it was a pretty easy win. I just kept removing all their permanents in case they do find an answer for Teferi, and in that case they would have less permanents in play, which would make their glimpse much worse. So I thought that was like best option for me at that time. So it was pretty important they don't do that stuff this turn, because they had a lot of permanents, and Teferi was on 4, so Fury would kill it. But turn after I put Teferi on 5, and then after I did that I was pretty sure they can't win. So the next turn I just succeeded to remove all their blockers, to make my Soulherder large and just finish them off with damage. So very easy game. As I said, I just like cast Teferi turn 3 and sold the entire game. I could have just plus the Teferi straight away, but I wanted to get rid of one of their clues, so to make them draw less. Okay. Okay, that was it. I don't know why I didn't play until the end, but I just removed all the creatures with Ephemerate and killed them next turn. So, game 2. Game 2 played on a draw, which is a bit more, definitely more difficult, because I can't put Teferi into play before they do the combo, but they didn't have any play turn 2, which is great for me. And then my plan, I still didn't have Teferi, so my plan was to just destroy all everything they put into play, so they have less permanents into play when they cast the Cascade spell. So I just found the Omnath, preparing because it's the fastest way for me to kill, and I just get rid of their permanents and prepare the next turn Omnath with Solitude. Unfortunately, they had a counterspell for Omnath here, but they didn't have. They still didn't want to cascade. They just put the land. They probably wanted to make some tokens before they do the cascade, but they decided on their turn to attack first, which worked perfectly with my Solitude because I was able to block and kill one. I guess they didn't have. I guess they didn't have a combo at this point, and I found Veto and Teferi, and I could have saved Veto in this moment, but it seemed like a real waste to not play Teferi, because it instantly wins the game, and they didn't show they have much. So turn after, they finally did the cascade, but it was like very bad cascade. They didn't find anything and conceded after that. So that was game one. Very easy and a bit lucky game against Glimpse combo. So game two. Game two. I think I was playing against Dredge. Yes, not Dredge, but Crabvine, and it's a very interesting matchup because I do have a lot of options and a lot of early removal for their crabs and similar, but they can be very explosive and just put a lot of their stuff from graveyard into play very early, and it's definitely a problem for this deck, especially if I'm not playing first. So they were still in a very good position. I had an awkward hand. I was depending on this Eladamri school and needed the land desperately, and I didn't draw it, so I decided my only option is to play Ice-Fang and draw a land, which I did. And after that, I was really okay. Much better if I just than if I just played the Eladamri school, and that would put me in an awkward situation, and I would be in a bad position a turn after. So I think this was the best option at that time. Just try to draw a land, and when they did and their Bloodgust trigger, I decided to go Endurance. So now they had option to crack their fetch and return the Bloodgust, but they decided not to do that. But just to keep filling their graveyard after Rainforest, and luckily didn't hit anything good in the 3 cards, but they did kill my Teferi, and I succeeded to draw a fetch with Omnath, and I was able to put some blockers on the battlefield, and that was it. So after that, I'm just in a very good position, gaining life with Omnath. I have a lot of draw spells, which are also blockers like Ice-Fang, Teferis, and these are all pretty good. So I succeeded to find more fetches and some removal, also played my Teferi, so it's a pretty unwinnable position for them after that. Okay, that was it. I didn't want to attack into Stitcher Supplier this turn. There was no need to do that. I just played my Yorion, blinked everything, drew many cards, and preparing to win next turn. So, as I said, if I did, okay, that was it. They conceded after that. Okay, so game 2, I was on a draw, and I got stuck a bit on mana, and that made me lose the game. But I did have an okay starting hand with 2 Prismatic Endings for Krebs, Drami's Call, Iteration. These are all pretty good cards for this matchup. I guess the biggest problem was that I didn't have a second green card in hand to exile it on my endurance. So at this point I was able to exile their Hedron Crab, but I found my endurance, hoping that I would draw a land. But then they played Stitcher Supplier and milled some good cards, and I wasn't able to play my endurance, and it was too much damage for me to deal with everything without more mana and green cards. So that was game over for me. Okay, we can go on the next game. That was it. I didn't succeed to draw a land. Okay, so game 3, I was on a play, which is much easier and very luckily because they had incredibly good hand. So turn 1 Amoeba Amalgam, that's pretty good. But I also had a good hand, so at this point I just played my land and passed the turn. They had very good hand. You will see that they milled the Vengevine with Supplier and played their Secret Keeper turn 2. So they're attacking for 8 turn 2, which is definitely pretty good. But luckily I had Solitude, but they also did have Subtlety, so it was pretty brutal hand from their side. And nothing I could have done about that, so I was in a pretty awkward position, and I decided that in this situation my best option is to just play mana, save my mana and play the endurance just to block this amalgam and hold Solitude in hand in case they find some other things, and that I can prevent their lethal if necessary. So they attacked with everything. I did play my endurance, hold Solitude. They decided to play the gaze before endurance ability. So that was a good thing for me. It meant they won't do anything else this turn. so I just turn after I just I was hoping to draw a second white spell so I can ditch it to Solitude and then do the Ephemerate, but I did only find Wrenn in this situation, and Wrenn killed the Narcomoeba, and my only option was to block the Bloodgust and exile the Vengevine. So didn't have I haven't been able to use my Ephemerate, and turn after I draw another Solitude and put my Yorion to hand, but I'm on 2 life, so in a very awkward situation, and I have to use my fetch to be able to get to that 5 mana and actually try to cast my Yorion, Solitude and other spells. But they still find some stuff to do. They find another crab. I was forced to block their supplier, so they milled another gaze. And I had to put myself on 1 life, so I'm definitely in a pretty tough position. I found Abundant Growth with my Expressive Iteration, and I was able to play it on my Windswept Heath, which got me the Eladamri's Call. So luckily I was able to find my Endurance, ditched my Omnath to exile their graveyard in response to 2 Bloodgust triggers, and I was thinking they probably have a Creeping Chill in hand, and I was holding my Solitude as a solution for Creeping Chill, which is a good thing I did, because I could exile my Endurance to gain some life and survive the turn. Okay, so we are both left with nothing in hand. I had 1 removal left for the crab, but we are both in a top deck mode, but obviously my draws can be much better than theirs. I had nothing for 2 turns, and then turn after I did succeed to find my Teferi and had my ulti on Wrenn. Then I succeeded to find Omnath, gain some life, put myself back to 4, which is pretty important. Draw a card with Teferi and hold a Solitude for anything they do. So that was it. After that play, my opponent conceded the game. So, but it was a pretty close game and interesting. A very tense game. So I was able to block this incredible draw they had, where they put Amoeba Amalgam turn 2, turn 3 Stitcher Supplier into Vengevine, which is pretty crazy. Turn 2 attacking for 8 damage with 1 more power on the table in Stitcher Supplier, and to win this game I had to cast 2 Endurances as an instant and 3 Solitudes, so with 2 Eladamri's Call, so it was pretty tough game and interesting. Okay, that was it. Time for to see game 3. Game 3, I had to mulligan. I put Bolt. On the bottom, not knowing what I'm playing against, and it was a burn deck. So both games playing on a draw against burn is a bit of tough, but I succeeded to win both games. So at this point, they were low on the cards in hand, they were left with just one card, and I was on a 10 life, so I decided to go with for Omnath, and just try to survive, until turn 5, where I can start gaining life with Omnath. So I decided not to put my Omnath on the battlefield and risk losing it, because I drew my March, and luckily March saved me from dying, and next turn I was able to play my Omnath and land gain 4 life, and my opponent doesn't have 4 damage into creatures, so they can't prevent that. Maybe only prevent life gain, but they don't play that cards in their main. Okay, so I gain 4 life there, and my opponent probably didn't have much in their hand, and they conceded. Okay, so game 2, again on a draw against Burn. I put in I think I just put in a few cards, dropped 2 Teferis for Night of Autumn, and something else that is not very relevant. So when they played Eidolon, I decided that I don't want to lose 3 life this turn. I just want to fetch my Ketria Triome and kill their Eidolon on my turn, play my tap land, and that's it. They did have a pretty aggressive hand, 2 bolts and Monastery's Whisper attack put me low on 6, but my Skyclave Apparition was like a perfect draw here. I'm able to kill 2 creatures with it. So turn after, I had my Doin's. I boarded in, of course, 3 Doin's Vetoes, and I draw my Doin's Veto and had my Ice-Fang to block the token. So I was pretty sure I'm not going to die this turn. They play Vortex, which I countered, and now it's just waiting for Omnath. I plus my Teferis because I wanted to bounce my Ice-Fang next turn and try to draw some life gaining spell, because I was left on 1 life. And I attacked with my Ice-Fang and did find the Eladamri's Call, and with my Eladamri's Call I played my Night of Autumn, which I boarded in and gained 4 life. They again had a burn spell, but I draw 2 cards, which was another Doin's Veto and Ephemerate, and Ephemerate was especially good with Teferi on the battlefield. I can blink my knight whenever I want and gain much life, and also holding Doin's Veto meant GG for them. Okay, so my sideboard cards definitely won me this game. Okay, so that was game 3. We can now check the game 4. Game 4, I played against Orzhov Stoneblade. They played first and they had Bob turn 2, and I didn't have a solution for Bob, but I did have my Eladamri's Call in hand, so they drew 1 card, and I was hoping them to play another creature, which they did. So after that I was able to play my Eladamri's Call and find my Fury. Fury is definitely pretty good here. I was able to kill both of their creatures and hold Ice-Fang and Omnath in hand, but unfortunately they had Turak turn 4, which is always a very good play. So they were able to grow their Turak a lot, and I just didn't have solution for this large Turak. My best option was to try to block it with Witness and then do Ephemerate, but they also find Kaldra, so it was a pretty tough spot for me, especially with Liliana on the battlefield. I had some chance. My only chance here was blocking both creatures, blinking my Witness, returning my Omnath to hand. I decided at this moment just to return Ephemerate again to my hand with Witness and to try to rely on luck, try to draw a land with Omnath, but I didn't succeed, so that was it. If I returned a fetch in my hand, I would have drawn a Teferi and could have bounced the Germ token, but then I would probably be forced to block Turak again. With Witness, and they had. I also needed solution for my for their Liliana because it was on 6. So I think my only option was to bring Ephemerate back in hand, try to draw the fetch, then play the fetch, gain some life, gain mana, play my Ephemerate, return Prismatic Ending, try to kill Liliana with Prismatic Ending, and then try to survive one more turn, but it was pretty unlikely. So that was it. I lost game 1, but at least I knew what I'm up against for the next 2 games, which helped me a lot to win them. Okay, they again had Bob, but now I was playing first and I found Apparition with my Eldrami's Call, exiled Bob immediately. They removed very good spells from my hand with their discard, Iteration and Wrenn, both pretty important and good. I decided not to kill the Stoneforge because I had Ephemerate for sword and Solitude in my hand for anything they play. But when they played Dirty, I targeted Stoneforge first, so they to make sure they use their mana first to put a sword on the battlefield, which was perfect for me because then I was able to block to Ephemerate the Solitude, kill the other creature, and then rebound Apparition to exile the sword. So it's definitely a great position for me at this point, holding Yorion in hand and 1 removal. So succeeded to draw a land here which was great. Made me exile their Lingering Souls, kill their token, and okay, so that was it. They did find just Kadra, but they were forced to block, so they didn't have a chance. Game 2. And game 3 was a bit more difficult because I was on a draw, but my opponent mulliganed to 5 cards, and my hand was very good. So I had a lot of removals, a lot of card draw spells, so I don't really care about them discarding the Ice-Fangs and Wolves when when I have my Prismatic Endings to destroy their Bob, Stoneforge and similar early game. So they didn't do much. They just played their sword turn 4, and when I cast my Knight of Autumn on their sword, they conceded because they probably had a bad hand, probably something like Kadra and maybe some removal in hand, and that was it. Okay, so time to check our last game. Last game I was against Mono Red Eldrazi's. Okay. Okay, I was again playing first, which was pretty good for pretty important for this matchup for me to play first. So I didn't have much to do, a lot of lands in hand, and they had Totnot, so took my Yorion. I didn't have much in graveyard to return with this Witness, so I decided to play my March this game just to remove some pressure from the battlefield, and okay, so this was a pretty important turn because I drew Teferi, and then I bounced one of their Totnots into their hand, which made me draw 2 cards, one from Teferi and one from Totnot. So one of those 2 cards was Eladamri's Call, which was perfect because I had mana to play it, and find my Fury, exile my Wrenn, my second Wrenn, with Fury, and kill the second Totnot, which was pretty important because I just put my Wrenn and 6 on 7 counters, and it was ready to ulti the next turn. So I just succeeded to clean the board with putting my Wrenn and 6 on 7, and it was a game winning because they didn't attack Wrenn before, and it paid off for me. So I just destroyed the other Totnot and drew the iteration, but of course they had Totnot in their hand, which they were about to play, but they decided to remove the Witness, and they also had another Reshaper. So at this point I was able to ulti my Wrenn, and I had March and Eladamri's Call. I think Eladamri's Call. Yes, Eladamri's Call in my graveyard, which are 2 great cards to have in your graveyard in this situation. So I have removals for their creatures, and I can find my Omnath, Solitude, and other stuff I need. And I was largely flooded, so I had a lot of lands in my hand which I could use to play those spells from graveyard. Okay, so but in this situation I decided to play my Eladamri's Call, find my Apparition, exile Totnot, and probably block their Reshaper when they attack. So it seemed like the best option at the moment for me, because I wasn't able to find Omnath and cast it immediately, and with fetch they found their third Totnot and killed my apparition. Which was then very good for them, because they got another 4/4 and another they got two 4/4s, one from Skyclave Apparition and their third Totnetier, which exiled another card from my hand. So at this point I played my Omnath. I found my Omnath with my Eladamri Cold, played it. This turn I was able to play fetch after that, and just play my march on their Totnot, exile their third Totnot, and draw another card. Yeah, so I think that was the best play at this moment, and I had my Eldritch Evolution in hand, which allows me to find another Omnath. That's the reason why I blocked the token this turn, to stay higher on life. And I just played my Wall of Omens and played my Eldritch Evolution again on Wall to find my Omnath again. And I gained some life, but I didn't want to play anything else that turn, because I drew my Ice-Fang. So on their attack, I played my Ice-Fang, blocked Shaper with Omnath and Smasher with Ice-Fang, which is a great way to kill Reality Smasher, definitely. They had removal for my Omnath again, but that wasn't a problem. I had a lot of cards in my hand, and I just played my Endurance and Bolt, because every land is a new Omnath, and I had two Ephemerates, so I decided to use one straight away. They find Fury, but I had my second Ephemerate, so it wasn't a problem. I also had a removal for Fury. So at this point I was in a very good situation. Obviously with Wren's ulti it's difficult to lose, but it really was it was not easy. They had a lot of Totnotseers, and but I was able to get rid of everything somehow and kill them. This turn I just exiled the Fury and attack, and that was it. Okay, that was that game 1? I think that was game 1. Yeah, game 2 they had Ragavan, but luckily I had Prismatic Ending on turn 1, so they played Chalice turn 2, but it was really not impacting the game at all. It was really a much easier game for me than game 1. They did find Totnot, but I had a good hand, so I wasn't too worried about that. I had a really lot of removal, Prismatic Ending, and 3 Solitudes, which is definitely great against them, and just drew into more removal as the game went on. So they didn't play anything, so I decided it's best to play one of my Solitudes and start attacking, gaining some life. So this turn it was best to just put my Wrenn into play and and Yorion in hand. They found a Blood Moon, but it wasn't such a problem because I had the ending in hand and a fetch on a battlefield, and just drew another Spreading Seas, which can turn my land into island. But I just removed their Blood Moon, fetched another white source, and played the Spreading Seas. They did find a lot of Furies this game, but it wasn't a big problem because I had a lot of Solitudes. Okay, it was just Fury, Solitude, Fury, Solitude. Pretty good game, pretty good for me because it just doesn't put too much pressure on me, and I definitely have better draws and more card draw than them, so at this point I just played my Yorion, draw 3 cards, so after that I think it's impossible for them to win. Okay, why did the video stop? I don't know, it stopped, but that was it. That was, I don't know why the replay stopped, but that was it. After that, they couldn't do anything with my Ephemerate in hand, bolt. I think they died next turn. So that was it. That was all of the games. So I'm pretty happy with this build. I don't like the new versions with the counter spells and Supreme Verdicts. It's definitely a good version, but it's not as fun to play as this one, where you get to play Ephemerate very often. Your Eldrami's calls, which are pretty important in this deck, maybe more important than iterations and most of other non-creature spells. And as I said, I will add Otawara and Bosiju into deck, but I didn't want to add them before this league because I wanted to see first what exactly do I want to remove for those two, and it's probably Reflecting Pool and Misty Rainforest because this mana base is working pretty good for me so far. I don't want to mess it up too much. But I think it's definitely those two that will go out for the new lands, and that's it. So another additions for this version is third Spreading Seas in Sideboard, and maybe even in the main if your meta shows it's important to have it in main. It's a pretty good card against Tron Sagas and sometimes Titan. Okay, so that's it. I did fast replays this time to go as fast as possible through the league. With just try to show some important steps through the games, and that's it. There will be probably one video every week for this time, and that's it for today. So until the next time.